Shalom. So today we're going to talk about the seventh day of the week is a location in the sky. Now we're going to look at three aspects of this lesson, right? So the first one is not to lean on our own logic, right? So we will get into looking at not leaning on our own logic as Proverbs 3 and 55 said, right? The second aspect is that we're going to look at the moon, how it changes every seventh day. The moon changes every seventh day, not every 7 days, every seventh day at a specific time in the heavens, right? It changes, and that change is prominent, it stands out. So wherever you are in the earth, you can identify it and you'll know what to do on that day, right? Now, the third aspect is the hypocrisy and the ignorance of the Gregorian followers. Not the people that made this Gregorian calendar, but the people who follow it. Because when you look into the Jesuit astronomers, they know exactly what they're doing. All the information they put out there that you can physically look at, those information are accurate. What is manipulative is the narrative that they put on the information. So no longer you're dealing with what's in front of you, you're focusing on the belief, the narrative. Even if what you're seeing is different, you still go by the belief, right? So we're going to see how hypocritical that is and how many things are done through ignorance. So sometimes some people say things, it's more like they really don't know that they don't know, but they just um, regurgitate information, even if they don't have evidence or logical reasoning or understanding, right? So let's start with Proverbs 3 and verse 5. It says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on thine own understanding. So we're going to use the knowledge of the Most High, the wisdom of the Most High, right? And we're going to go through all this understanding to get to whatever understanding is revealed throughout his knowledge, through his knowledge, right? From precept to precept. Now, when I say lean not on, when the scripture says lean not on your own understanding, what it means is that the beliefs that we hold before, from where whatever source we got them, now you're stepping into the lab. The Bible is our lab, right? That's where all the experiments are done. When you step into that biblical laboratory, right? Don't step in with a preconceived idea, a preconceived concept, whatever it is. Don't go in there with a preconceived notion. Otherwise, whatever result you get back is going to be a result that magnifies the belief that you initially went in with. For example, Isaiah 40 verse 22. Let's go there. Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 22. It says, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. Now, what if I come in with this belief that the earth is ball round? Once I read the first precept that says, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, that is already magnifying my belief that, see, the earth is a ball. It's floating in the whatever is up there, right? So you don't want to lean on that logic to magnify that logic, even if it's irrational, right? So that's one example. Now, the next preconceived notion or idea or whatever we come with is that once a person uses the sun, the moon, and or the constellations, we equate that to what? Moon worshippers, sun worshippers, planet worshippers, and so forth, right? That is just a preconceived belief. But let us go to the book of Genesis, chapter 1 and verse 14. It says, and God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. So, what are those lights in the firmament that will be signs unto his people? Would it not be the sun, the moon, the constellations? So, how is it that when you're using them for the intended purpose, the purpose that Adam was using them for, right? To keep all these holy days, not what Eve wanted to do with them, right? You're not bowing to them, you're using them for the intended purpose. But when people have this belief that you become a moon worshiper if you use the moon for something, you become a sun worshiper if you use the sun for something. But the law says we should use those lights in the firmament. So when did using these lights become worshiping these lights? You know where it came from? That's because a lot of the priests are the teachers of the Bible today who don't use the sun, the moon, or the constellations in anything because they work either in an office or something, right? So they already start push that idea. And once you hear it, you run with it. And then you start to equate using the sun, the moon, and the constellations. Do you know what you put it with? Horoscope, zodiacs, all of these, those type of astrology. That's what it boils down to. So you're confusing astrology with a person who uses it for agricultural purpose or traveling purpose. Before there were GPS, how do you travel at sea? Do you worship the sun, the moon, and the stars to travel at sea? People used to travel by ship back then, way back. So everyone was worshiping the stars because they're looking at it at nights to know where they are. I mean, during the days, it's easy to use the sun to know where you know, west and so forth is east, whatever, right? But in the nights, you don't have the sun, you have to use the constellation. So, how do you find your way navigating the seas? Doesn't mean that you're worshiping them. But that idea came from teachers that you look up to. How do I know this? Because I used to do it too. That's the first thing I heard. Oh, horoscope, zodiac, this, that, witchcraft, and bowing down to these things. And okay, but what if a person uses it for agricultural purpose? How is it bowing down to them? And the scriptures say the lights are to indicate those signs. A sign is either audible or visible, or whichever else way. We don't hear things from the sun and the moon, so it's visible. So we have to look at it, right? Thunder is audible, you hear it, right? So what about a person who looks at the cloud to say, "Oh, it's gonna rain. I have to go inside, or I have to take the clothes out from outside, or whatever it is." Are they worshiping the clouds? You see? So we cannot step into this lab with preconceived ideas, philosophies, beliefs, and all of those things, right? Now, the next thing is mathematics. What do we call mathematics? For some people, it's just adding up numbers to arrive at a certain number, and we conclude that number as the correct answer, even if it's irrational. But as long as the numbers equate back to what we're looking for, we take it, right? But mathematics is way more than that. Mathematics is general knowledge. It's knowledge in general. It's not just numbers. It's something that is studied, it's something that is learned, it's something that is known. Abraham used to go all throughout Mesopotamia and teach these people all these things. It's mathematics, it's general knowledge, because you couldn't do anything without that in ancient cultures. Now it's the computers running all these numbers for us. But back then we had to do it, right? So the concept that it's just numbers, that's a belief, and that logic will create a lot of confusion. So let's look at some examples of adding numbers to get to a certain point rather than dealing with rather than dealing with rational things, right? Now, we will say there are 4 weeks in a month for us, right? 4 weeks. So 4 weeks, a week is 6 work days and a rest day. So four of that in each month. Now a person would say, okay, leaning on logic, let me go this way. 4 weeks times 7 days equal 28 days. Okay, so how would you have 4 weeks in each month and then you have 29 days here, or sometimes 30, depending? Uh, just an example. You see, this is what the preconceived belief does. Trying to add numbers to get back to certain thing. 4 weeks in each month. It does mean that 4 weeks make a month. There's a difference. So it takes reasoning and understanding to get what a person is actually saying rather than adding your own logic of multiplying numbers to get to a certain point. Right? Now, the next one is like in Genesis with the flood of Noah, when it speaks about 150 days, right? Leaning on your own logic, you know what it does? It will take 150 days. This is not working now. 150 days divide by 30 equal. So logic will do this. Take 150, as in the days of the flood of Noah, divide it by 30 equals to 5 months. And then you say, you see, there are 12 months and they're all 30 days. That's logic. Now, the scriptures clearly stated 150 days the water prevailed. It didn't say 5 months, but when you look throughout the scriptures, whenever it gives a specific time of months, it will tell you that, okay, this king reigned 10 years and 6 months. Um, this person traveled, or this country was under siege for 9 months. It tells you specific that these are months. Here it says 150 days. It never said 5 months. So this is leaning on logic. We cannot step into this lab with all these preconceived beliefs, trying to use mathematical numbers or something systematic to get to the understanding of the Most High. We have to prove it, right? The next one is 7 days equivalent to a week. No, that's a confusion again. 7 days for us is 6 work days and the Sabbath. That's what make a week, not just any 7 days, right? So if you're here, say here, the fourth day of the month, the fourth day of the week, and then you count 7 days until the third day of the following week, that's a period of 7 days, but it's not a week because a week doesn't have the Sabbath in the middle, the weekly Sabbath in the middle of it. The weekly Sabbath falls at the end after 6 work days. So the Sabbath would be 6 work days, right? And the rest day. That's 7 days making a week. From anyone from anywhere here, counting 7 days, that's just 7 days. That's not a week. So from the fourth day of this week to the third day of next week, that's a period of 7 days. It does not equate to a week. So we have to make all those distinction, right? Now, the next one is the idea that 24 hours make a day, right? Now, when you go through the scriptures, let's go to the book of Job, chapter 7. and verse 4. It says, when I lie down, I say, when shall I arise, and the night be gone? And I am full of tossing to and fro unto the dawning of the day. Right? Now let's go to the book of Second Corinthians, chapter 11, and verse 25. It says, thrice was I beaten with rods, once was I stoned, thrice I suffered shipwreck, a night and a day. So the point is that there's no biblical context that uses the word day and make reference to a 24-hour period. There's no scripture that indicates a 24-hour period used under the word day. It says 40 days, 40 nights. Why do the scriptures always make that distinction? What is it that the Most High is always trying to tell us, regardless of what cultural beliefs that we may hold today that are unscriptural? We have to make a distinction between what is cultural and what is scriptural. These are two different contexts. This culture that we're born into, that we live in today, it carries the concept of 24-hour days. The ancient or the biblical context or culture does not have that concept. So that would be adding these mathematical things to get back to a certain point, even if it takes away reality or reasoning, right? Now, the next thing is dealing with weeks. Like, if we say there are 4 weeks in each month, right? Motherfucker, let me write it here. See, we know that there are 12 months. There are 12 months in the year, and there are 4 weeks in each month, right? You'd have 48 weeks total. Now, are we saying that in a year there are 336 days? No, we're not saying that. So if you try to use this mathematical belief system or systematic calculation, this is what you will end up with. So we cannot lean. There are so many reasons why we should not lean on our own logic, right? So now that we have this cleared up, let's go through with an open mind. All right. Now, the moon changes every seventh day, right? Now, when we say the moon changes every seventh day, what we mean is that these up here, they belong to the Most High. And also, this is what creates the confusion when we read Genesis chapter 1, right? The 7 days belong to the Most High, right? Now, afterwards, he created a calendrical cycle. It's divided into months for agricultural purposes, for holy feast days, and so forth. Now, all of that is compacted, or it's fit under these 7 days, just like you have all these laws, right? Right through the Bible. But when you compact them, it can fit under sacrificial law, the moral law, the civil law, dietary law, and so forth, right? Those are categories, right? So it's the same thing with these. These days are for the Most High, and they are fixed. They cannot be changed, they cannot be altered, or anything. No, what He gave to us is the days of each month, right? So the moon changes every seventh day of each month, right? So when we say it changes every seventh day of each month, that is to say that the seventh day of each month will always fall under the seventh day of the Most High, because this is sanctified and blessed. It cannot be changed, right? So The seventh day of each month. So when you say the 29th of the month, the 22nd of the month, the 15th of the month, the 8th of the month, the first day of the month, it all falls under the seventh day, and that's the only day that is distinctive. You know what it means when something is distinctive? Your fingerprint, for example, is distinctive. What can be done to it? Nothing can be confused. There's no confusion with your fingerprint because it's identical only to you. When they can steal your name and your ID numbers, they cannot steal your fingerprint because it's distinctive. Now, the seventh day is the same, it's distinctive. So, the question is, what do these dates have to do with the moon? Right, when you get to the beginning of the moon, the beginning cycle of the moon, that is a marker to let you know that's the seventh day, right? Then afterwards, you're gonna have 6 days of work where those days are not distinctive because you cannot go outside on the third day, the second day, the fifth day, the fourth day, etc., and say that's the fourth day, that's it. That's not distinctive, right? The only reason why we can tell those days is because we can identify the seventh day, and from the seventh day, we know what comes after. It's going to go back on a cycle to the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and this goes on a cycle, right? So at the beginning cycle of the moon, when you look at it, counting from there, you're going to have 6 work days afterwards. And then when you look at the moon again, it's going to be there again. It's going to be visible, that everyone can see it. Here, on the second Sabbath, the second period of seventh day, you cannot physically see the moon, and this is why you work with both the moon and the sun, because you get to number 6 work days. So after your Sabbath here, after your first Sabbath, you number 6 work days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you rest on the seventh day because the moon will not be visible on this Sabbath, right? Then from here again, you number another 6 days and it goes on to a different phase. And again, you number another 6 days and it goes on to a different phase. So what you will notice is that all these days are the 4 phases that you see on your calendar, your almanac, whatever it is, all over in your house. As they call it, truth in plain sight. So that's why I said earlier, the Jesuit astronomers, the information that they put out is accurate, it's efficient. The manipulation is the narrative that they place on it. Now, the patterns of the moon is always the same. Every cycle is the same. So you can always know it doesn't change to something unrecognizable. So once you're physically observing the moon, the problem is a lot of people don't want to go into simulators and all these apps to try to validate the moon itself. Why don't you? How difficult it is to just go outside and look at the object itself. Why do we have to be all over Google searching this website, that website, buying all these books to research something that we can physically put our hands on? Not literally, but I mean, look, now that we get the pattern of the moon that is on a cycle that keeps going over and over, now let us go to the ignorance and the hypocrisy of the Gregorian followers, not of the Jesuit astronomers, the Gregorian followers, right? So I'm going to add these in here. Now, the ignorant person would say the new moon can fall on any day. Remember, we already covered not leaning on our own logic, right? So they say the new moon can fall on any day. Now, let's look at this and we're going to see how hypocritical this is. Our Sabbaths now, our seventh day falls on the day that is the Saturday on the Gregorian calendar. So we are here actually. Well, today is their Sunday, so we are here. So yesterday was our second Sabbath, right? Our second Sabbath, the 22nd is going to be the third, and the 29th is going to be the fourth. Now let me put in the Roman dates so we can flow easier. All right, so here we have the Roman dates, right? No, it's not here as yet. We're not at the 23rd of March as yet, but I'm going to start from bottom, come up, right? So this is going to be a Saturday, which is going to be our last Sabbath. Next Saturday will be our third Sabbath, and yesterday we passed this, right? So we have our Sabbath. The Saturday followers have their Sabbath, right? Here, and we had 6 work days. It's not yet another 6 work days. So we are here. So we had the Sabbath yesterday and the 9th of March, same as the Saturday followers, right? If you go 6 days back, take us to the 8th, which take them to the 2nd of March, we're still at the same seventh day, right? No. How is it that when we get here, right, and you go 6 work days back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how is it that we cannot end up back here, but ours can start anywhere else? They say on the third day, the second day, for example. So if ours should start here, let me get that. Okay, let's say ours can start anywhere. So let's put it the third day. How is it that ours get to jump all these days, but theirs continue back at the same place? Isn't that hypocritical, or am I adding my own logic? But help me to understand. How is it that here we go 6 work days back, we end up the same place. 6 work days back, we end up the same place. 6 work days back, we end up the same place. 6 work days back up here. We get to skip all these days, but they go here. If I'm wrong about understanding it, then I hope to get some clarity how we get to skip days, right? And the next thing, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say when we get here, the days are skipped, however that be, and we're here. So this is our new moon day. How do we jump from here on the third day, right, to here to continue the cycle? So what happened to these 3 days here? There's 4 days here. It just disappear into thin air. You cannot make a day go away. You cannot make a day come into existence. So how is this skipping to new moon fall in any place? But it does not happen on their beginning of month. But it happens on our beginning of month. That's hypocrisy and ignorance. If our new moon skip all these days, then their Sabbath should skip all these days too. So how are you applying a logic to the moon that you don't apply to yourself? Why does your logic apply to the moon? Because once you are here, The only day before this is going to be here, nowhere else. So there's no such thing as skipping, because these does not exist. The new moon is not preceded by any day. So even if you're here, for example, at the end of the month, right? Once you start a new cycle, these weeks are out the equation. You cannot go back to the previous weeks. You cannot go back to the previous month. We're in March now. Go back to February. It's not possible, right? So once each month is finished, you start a new cycle. You cannot take anything from over here and merge with over here. So new moon is not preceded by any day. So there is no such thing as jumping places with the Most High. That might happen in your head, but not with the Most High, right? So this is the pattern. So the new moon is a restarting of a cycle. So for example, this is the starting point. The cycle goes around from here and it's going to come back to red. That's what a cycle is. It goes around and comes back to its same point, like Ecclesiastes chapter 1. It says, one generation passeth, comes back around. The sun goes around in its course, comes back around. And all these things go around, comes back to the same point. So it's the same thing with the cycle of the moon, right? So it starts here at an appointed place in the heavens, goes all the way around and comes back to this appointed place. It doesn't skip places. So when you get to the 29th day of a month or the 30th day of the month, you know what? You go back to the first of the following month, the present month that you're now in. You go back to the first day of the month. Now we're going to look at something. Our days are not on a continuous, infinite thing, right? Our days are on a cycle. Like I explained here, once you're here, the 29th or the 30th, you go to the first. So the cycle is restarted. Not like a Gregorian where they say it's continuous, whatever continuous means, right? So we're going to look at the meaning of continuous because this is the term that they use. And then we're going to question their logic. We're not going to add our logic, we're going to question theirs, right? Because you cannot trust an answer that cannot be questioned. These people will give you answers, but as soon as you start to question, there's the irritation starts and all these things, right? So we're gonna question those logics of the continuous. So in terms of the days of month counting, right? If you ask someone to count up to 35 days, right? Which would be the correct way? When they get to 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, or 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which would be the correct? Because what I understand from the word continuous, it means that it's without stopping, without interrupting, without breaking. You continue. So when you get to the 30th day of that month, you should continue 31, 32, 33, 34, 35th day of the month because it's continuous. You see, like I said earlier, even if it's not logical, they go with a narrative. But if it's continuous, why when you get to the first of the beginning of each month, you restart your count at one? That means it's not continuous. So you see, they don't go with what is before them. They go with the narrative, the philosophies. the beliefs, the ideas, the thoughts, even if there's no reality connected to those thoughts. It cannot be continuous and interrupted at the same time. So make up your mind, is it continuous or is it not continuous? Because if it's continuous, then this is the correct way of counting from one month to the next. If it's not continuous, this is how you count from one month, the 29th or the 30th, and you go back to the first of the following month. So what is it telling you when every month you start counting from one? It means it's not a continuous cycle. Just like the days of the week, it only goes to seven and it starts over. So it cycles around 7 days, a starting point and an ending point. The days of the month is the same. It starts at 1, it goes to 29 or 30, and then you restart at that specific point. 1. The days of the year, right? For them, 365 or 366, right? Based on what they call it, leap year. Now, touching the leap year, that's one of the things I would have to agree somewhat with them because on our calendar, we are now having 355 days, and 4 years ago, we had also 355 days, right? I haven't proven the others to come, right? Or others before, but so far, I can tell you that that is accurate, right? I don't know if it's every 4 years period, but I've proven that, right? So I'm being honest, right? So when you get to the 365th day of the year or 366th day of the year, you restart your count at one because it's not continuous, as in go on and on from 1 week to the next, 1 month to the next, 1 year to the next. No, everything cycles in their own course. The week cycles in its own course of 7 days, the month cycles in its own course of 29 or 30 days, and the year cycles in its own course of 354 or 355 days. Everything has their own independent cycle. You merge them together, and that's how you get the calendrical cycle. No, let's go back to January 1st because remember they say there are 52 weeks, right? From January 1 to December 31. Oh, that's not working out. 52 weeks, right? No, 3 December 31 would be the end of the 366th day. It's their leap year, so 366, right? No, the 1st of January, this is what it looks like, right? So how is it that the 1st of January, how is it that they will start 2025 and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth day of the week? But if it's the first day, the first month, the first week, how is it that you're already at the fifth day? Now, again, I would like to understand your logic because you said there are 52 weeks in the year 2024. So, why, when you get to 2025, the first day, you're already 5 days into it? What kind of science is that? We need to start adding reality to our understanding. There's no reality in saying this is the beginning of a year, the first month, the first day. But on the first day, you're already 5 days into the year. That's not making any sense. And I'm not talking about from my logic, I'm talking from its own logic, that you're at the beginning of the year, the first week, the first day, but already 5 days are gone. So that's why they try to do the same thing with the moon, to say the new moon can fall anywhere, because the new year, the beginning of it, can fall anywhere because there's no reality connected to it. So I hope this gives clarity on the moon and how the phase changes every seventh day, right? And people in agriculture, they'll understand this more, right? The thing about religious people with the moon, the sun, the stars, you'll find that they demonize the moon, the sun, the stars more than anything else. People that they call pagans or heathens or Gentiles, they don't do that. It's always the religious people doing that. Why? And the pagans are using the same sun, the moon, the stars, and counting their blessings agriculturally and other ways that they're using it. Healing, cutting your herbs for medicine. You cut them at a certain point of the moon. Integrate these elements into your lives and see what blessings the Most High bring. I hope this is received with an open spirit. Shalom.